Shantideva was a great Indian Pandit and meditation master who lived from 687 to 763 AD. He is revered as one of the most outstanding figures in Mahayana Buddhism, embodying the archetype of compassion and wisdom. Born into royalty in ancient India, Shantideva renounced his kingdom to embrace a life of asceticism and spiritual pursuit. His influential work, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, serves as a guiding light for practitioners aspiring to traverse the path of enlightenment. Renowned for his profound teachings on compassion, wisdom, and altruism, Shantideva's legacy endures as an inspiration to seekers of truth and enlightenment worldwide. The exact location of Shantideva's birth is still disputed. Some sources believe he was born in Gujarat, a prominent kingdom in the west of India, while others say he was born near Bodh Gaya, where Buddha was enlightened. The following is the life and legend of the great Bodhisattva Shantideva. Shantideva entered the world as the crown prince of a prestigious royal family. He was born to King Kushalavamana, whose name means armor of virtue, and Shantideva's mother was believed to be an emanation of the tantric deity Vajrayogini. When the young prince was born, his parents bestowed upon him the name Shantivarmana, which means armor of peace. Despite his tender age, Shantivarmana demonstrated an exceptional level of intelligence and remarkable aptitude in matters of spirituality. By the mere age of 7, he had already attained a high level of proficiency in the inner workings of Buddhism. It was as if the very fabric of reality was propelling him towards a profound awakening. During this crucial period of his development, Shantivarmana's principal teacher was a renowned yogi celebrated for his profound wisdom. Rumors circulated that this yogi had achieved unity with the wisdom of Buddha Manjushri, who embodies the wisdom of all enlightened beings. Under the guidance of his teacher, Shantivarmana himself engaged in many meditation retreats. Eventually, he too received a direct vision of Manjushri as well as many prophetic omens. However, shortly thereafter, the trajectory of Shantivarmana's life took a decisive turn. Following the passing of his father, King Kushalavarmana, Shantivarmana was approached by the people to assume the throne. Reluctant to disappoint his subjects, Shantivarmana unwillingly agreed to their request and promised to ascend as the king. However, on the eve of his coronation, he experienced a prophetic dream. In the dream, Manjushri was seated on the royal throne, saying to Shantivarmana, "O son, this throne is mine, and I am your guide on the path to enlightenment. We cannot both occupy the same seat," imploring him to forsake his royal heritage and renounce his kingdom to embrace the path of celibacy as a monk. Upon awakening from this auspicious encounter, Shantivarmana realized that he couldn't accept the throne, nor should he indulge in the king's possessions or lifestyle. Swiftly abandoning his royal obligations, Shantivarmana fled the palace in search of solace and enlightenment in the depths of the forest, through the path of meditation. It was there, amidst the serenity of the forest, that Manjushri once again appeared to him, this time presenting Shantivarmana with a symbolic wooden sword. Upon grasping the wooden sword, Shantivarmana attained 8 perfect realizations. Shortly afterwards, he journeyed to the renowned monastic university of Nalanda, where he received ordination under the guidance of Abbot Jayadeva, whose name means God of Victory. It was there that he was bestowed with the ordination name Shantideva, meaning God of Peace. Nalanda stood as a vast and magnificent place, revered as the foremost hub of Buddhist knowledge worldwide. While studying at Nalanda University, Shantideva's spiritual development progressed swiftly, primarily due to his training in the profound and demanding methods of Tantra. He received comprehensive teachings on Sutra and Tantra from both the abbot and the wisdom being Manjushri over an extended period. While he devoted himself inwardly to rigorous study and experienced profound realizations, outwardly he appeared inactive, giving the impression of a remarkably lazy scholar. While other monks thoroughly studied, prayed, performed prostrations, engaged in debates, and carried out various tasks essential for monastery upkeep, Shantideva appeared to abstain from all such activities. The other monks failed to discern any of his inner virtues and grew increasingly contemptuous of him. They derisively labeled him Busuku, which translates to the three realizations, signifying eating, Bhu, sleeping, Su, and emptying his bowels, Q. Actually, Shantideva was a concealed yogi with exceptional qualities. He embodied the concept of kusali, which signifies possessing virtue. This term refers to someone who consistently engages in virtuous actions without outwardly displaying their virtue. Here, kusali refrains from external shows of learning or attainment. They do not engage in prostrations, make offerings, or exhibit similar behaviors. However, internally, they amass extensive merit through practices such as mentally offering themselves to sacred objects and giving of themselves to sentient beings. Shantideva consistently exemplified these characteristics. So, not recognizing Shantideva's good qualities, the monks regarded him as utterly foolish and unfit for Nalanda. According to tradition, the Sangha, comprising monks and nuns, should listen to teachings on Dharma as a way to repay the generosity of those who provide them with robes. The monks believed that Shantideva was wasting the offerings made by benefactors, which could lead to accumulating negative karma. They contemplated expelling him, but since it was challenging to do so without evidence of criminal behavior or extreme misconduct, they devised a plan to remove him. Within the monasteries, monks were tasked with memorizing numerous texts on philosophy and monastic discipline, which they were expected to recite by heart in the prayer hall. Believing that Shantideva hadn't memorized anything, the other monks' plan was to invite him to recite a sutra teaching. They anticipated that he would embarrass himself and consequently be compelled to depart from the monastery. On the day of the planned public embarrassment, the monks constructed an exceptionally tall throne for the occasion, deliberately omitting any steps, convinced that Shantideva would flee upon seeing it. However, when he arrived facing the entire monastery, he inquired whether they preferred him to recite a text from Buddha Shakyamuni or something never heard before. Naturally, the monks opted for something never heard before to thoroughly embarrass him. Then, to the astonishment of those present, Shantideva had already ascended the teaching throne, leaving them bewildered as to how he got there. To their amazement, he then began to deliver a discourse that would later be transcribed as Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which to this day is still regarded as the greatest instructions ever written for becoming a bodhisattva, a being bound for full enlightenment. He flawlessly recited the entire guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life by heart, with a fluidity akin to water flowing from a pristine spring. In a single uninterrupted session, he elucidated each of the 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva's actions, chapter by chapter, with perfect clarity and conciseness. As he expounded upon the 9th chapter, which explains the wisdom apprehending the true nature of reality, Shantideva spoke the words, "Everything is like space." It is rumored that he then transcended earthly constraints, ascending into the sky until he could no longer be seen, although it is said that his voice could still be heard clearly. And it is from there that Shantideva delivered the remainder of the 9th chapter and the entirety of the 10th. After concluding, Shantideva had no inclination to return to Nalanda and decided to depart for South India. The monks he left behind were deeply impressed and somewhat puzzled by his teachings and his demonstration of miracle powers. Shortly afterwards, a disagreement arose concerning these teachings. The Kashmiri Pandits asserted that Shantideva only taught 9 chapters, while scholars from Magadha, renowned for their exceptional memory abilities, contended that he had indeed taught 10. It was determined that the sole method to settle this dispute would be to listen to the teachings once more. Hence, several monks departed from Nalanda in pursuit of the one they had previously scorned, urging him to reiterate his discourse. Shantideva obliged and additionally provided them with the text of his Compendium of Trainings, which also expounds upon the practices of a bodhisattva. Since then, the study and practice of Shantideva's teachings flourished extensively across India and other Mahayana Buddhist regions. Shantideva also embarked on many other journeys, and tales abound regarding his adventures. In Magadha, one of the 16 great kingdoms of ancient India, he served as an attendant to a congregation of 500 individuals who adhered to erroneous beliefs. During a prolonged and severe storm, their provisions were depleted, leaving them in desperate circumstances. Amid their immense suffering and internal discord, the group quarreled, declaring that whoever ventured out to procure food would be their leader, and they would pledge allegiance to him. As their servant, Shantideva took it upon himself to seek alms and returned with only a single bowl of rice. Remarkably, when he distributed it among the 500, it miraculously satisfied them all. Through this act, he demonstrated to them that their beliefs were wrong. This remarkable act instilled profound faith in Shantideva among the local people, prompting them to embrace the Buddhist path wholeheartedly. During another time in that period, around 1,000 beggars were experiencing intense suffering and nearing death due to a severe famine. Through his psychic abilities, Shantideva was able to assist them initially, and subsequently he imparted teachings to guide them towards attaining perfect peace. On a separate occasion, Shantideva resided near the palace of the king of Arivishana. When the palace came under attack by a ruthless group of individuals bent on plundering the king's treasures, Shantideva vowed to safeguard the king and his subjects. Through his intervention, he successfully subdued the bandits and ensured the safety of the kingdom. The tranquility and abundance that Shantideva bestowed upon the land and its inhabitants aroused jealousy in a powerful individual who took the king aside. This person claimed that Shantideva was cunning and would deceive the king. As evidence, he cited Shantideva's defense of the territory with a wooden sword, arguing that it was clearly a trick. This incident infuriated the king, prompting him to demand that Shantideva reveal his sword. Despite Shantideva's reluctance, expressing concern that witnessing the sword could harm the king, the monarch insisted, even if it meant risking harm. Reluctantly, Shantideva requested the king to cover one of his eyes, and then he drew the sword from its scabbard. Although the sword was wooden, it emitted such a radiant brilliance that it blinded the eye of the king that remained open. Overcome with remorse for doubting Shantideva, the king was deeply distressed and offered his sincere apologies. He sought refuge in Shantideva and eagerly received teachings from him, thus embarking on the path of Dharma. It was Shantideva's sole purpose for residing in that kingdom to guide the king onto the path of enlightenment. Following those events, Shantideva journeyed southward to Glorious Mountain. As Shantideva's renown transcended cultural boundaries, envy simmered among non-Buddhist factions. In that region, there was a Hindu teacher named Shankaradeva who adhered to erroneous beliefs. Backed by the king, he engaged in debates with Buddhist scholars, employing not only verbal arguments but also psychic abilities. He even wagered bets with his adversaries, threatening to burn down the temple of whoever lost the contests. No one could match Shankaradeva's prowess, so puffed up with pride, Shankaradeva issued a challenge of intellectual debate to Shantideva, wagering that the loser would abandon their own doctrine and adopt the doctrine of the victor. During the competition, the Hindu teacher manifested a mandala of Maheshvara, their god, in the space. Meanwhile, Shantideva maintained his focus on the wind concentration, prana. Suddenly, a fierce storm erupted, scattering the entire mandala. Consequently, Shankaradeva suffered defeat. Unable to rival Shantideva, even with his psychic abilities, Shankaradeva and many of his followers converted to followers of the Buddha Dharma. Their contributions proved invaluable in furthering the development of Buddhist teachings. This narrative provides just a glimpse into the remarkable life of the esteemed Bodhisattva Shantideva, who tirelessly dedicated himself to propagating the teachings of Buddha, the Dharma, and aiding sentient beings. Even in present times, those fortunate enough to engage with and contemplate his profound texts can derive immense insight and benefit from them. Shantideva was once just like us, but through dedicated practice, he became completely free from delusions. Hence, he serves as a profound source of inspiration. While there have been numerous yogis who achieved similar feats, what makes Shantideva exceptionally special to us is his book, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. This remarkable text not only delineates the path to enlightenment comprehensively, but also does so in a language that is both eloquent and accessible. For over 13 centuries since its inception, this book has served as an inspiration for countless individuals. It reassures us that we too can cultivate our minds to attain the profound realizations of the great masters, providing clear guidance on how to proceed along this transformative journey.